Hey friends, so this is part 2 of making the Thranduil robe. We have mock-up and the fabric arrived about 2 days later, so I got started on part 2. Mind my appearance, I am currently still in half makeup for Thranduil and quite sweaty. Yeah, so...
So the first thing I do is we get a little overexcited about the fabric. I frankly cried a little bit while cutting into it, but I still have a yard and a half left, so we're good. Then next thing you do is you lay out the canvas on top, you lay out the fabric underneath, and then you take your panels, you lay them all out, try to really get them in tight. These all had seam allowance already on them, so I didn't have to worry about that. They could basically lay right next to each other and I was fine. Then you'll cut them out. And then you flatline all the layers together. You'll take the larger side, just a running stitch through that side, and then the smaller side gets the piping, so that the piping is in place. And you spend 3.5 days doing this. It sucks. So, montage. You seam them all together. What I do is I run a basting stitch through them first so I don't have to keep them pinned, just so that nothing slides out of place, because it is important to keep the accuracy, and I use a zipper foot for this so that I can get as close to the piping as humanly possible. This takes another day and a half. This is ridiculously long, especially with the very long panels in the back. Yeah, here is our first finished piece. This is what one of the front pieces looks like before any sort of anything goes into it. This is just the panel. Alright, and then I went through and I overlocked everything. I was going to hand fill it all, and then I was like, well, this brocade phrase like an absolute madman, so I'm just going to go and I'm going to run an overlock stitch through it all just to make sure that nothing happens. Oh, and I also sort of screwed up my finger, so there's that for the rest of the video, which is fine. I'm fine. Right, then you sew up a lining, which you just take the pieces that you have created before you seam them all together, and then you cut them out, and then you just sew it through the lining. Yeah, here's the lining sewed together. It's very ugly and crude, but that's because linings aren't supposed to be pretty. Right, then you fell the entire lining in by hand, because doing anything by machine with a lining is my absolute nightmare, and I hate it. Right, and then for the collar, what you do is you measure out, after getting the lining finished, how long you have around the neckline. I just basically cut a square out of interfacing, and then I flatline a layer of canvas, 2 layers of the brocade on top, and then here you'll see that I pad stitched them very crudely and very small just to keep them in place. Yeah, here's very crude pad stitching together, and then you'll not flatline. Oh, then you'll run a basting stitch just through the piping, just like always, so you keep it in place. And then you'll just take those 2 layers and you'll stitch them to each other. Alright, so here's the finished piece. I also put an invisible zipper, which I learned after this was slightly uneven, which is why it wouldn't want to do anything. So we're gonna have to go through and fix that again. But this is the finished piece, and here is a fun little montage while I completely rip out a zipper and do it one more time.